Hey folks, welcome back to the channel. My name is 3-Chord Dave and today we're going to talk about Rory Gallagher, that fella, and why he's not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, why he's never even been nominated. It's a disgrace. Yes folks, we'll talk about Rory Gallagher in just a moment, but first I want to remind you every Saturday night right here on this lovely YouTube channel we do 3-Chord Dave Live. Pop along, 10 p.m. Irish time, have some fun with us, talk about guitars and music and all kinds of things that pop up. All you got to do is make sure you're subscribed, hit the notification bell and choose all notifications, and that way you'll get a notification, you can come and join the party and have some crack on a Saturday afternoon, evening, or even a Sunday morning, depending on where you are in the world. So make sure you're a part of it. Also, before we get started, check out these new pieces of merch. Brand new, completely original fonts on the t-shirts. There says 3-Chord Dave. You can get that font on t-shirts of different colors, hoodies, all kinds of things. So check out the links in the description for the merch. Now, Rory Gallagher was an Irish blues rock guitarist, one of the greatest guitarists of all time, not just in my opinion, but in the opinion of many a person. The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. It was the idea of Ahmet Ertegun, who many people will know from Atlantic Records. He was Mr. Atlantic Records, and of course was the reason why Led Zeppelin reunited for a memorial show for him in London in 2008. Mr. Ertegun decided Rock and Roll Hall of Fame was a great idea, and it was a great idea, and people have been inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame since 1986. Some very, very notable bands have been included, and some have been excluded. In fact, they don't seem to like heavier music, but hey, that's fine. Rory Gallagher, though, has never even been nominated, and I think that is something of a travesty. This year's nominees were announced last week with the likes of Kate Bush, Carly Simon, Dolly Parton, Eminem. What? So, other people nominated this year: MC5, the New York Dolls, Duran Duran, Rage Against the Machine, you know, Judas Priest, you know, rock bands, most of them. So that's where it's going. So there's loads of nominees. I don't know how many people are going to be now actually inducted. Somewhere around May, we're going to find out, and there'll be a concert and an event, and there'll be a thing. But Rory Gallagher won't be part of it. He's never been nominated. I don't know why. We'll get into some of the people, the icons who say Rory Gallagher was a big influence on them in just a few moments. And some of those people are massive. And they're all in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, but they wouldn't be there if it wasn't for Rory Gallagher. Let me tell you, lots of people would not be there if it wasn't for Rory Gallagher. Now, the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is not without its controversy. In 2006, the Sex Pistols were inducted, but they refused to attend, which is very rare. Most living inductees attend the ceremony and the concert and things, and you know, go through the motions. They get their award in person, and but the Sex Pistols were like, no, it's a piss stain on the industry. We're not. That's their actual wording. Yeah, they're not. They weren't impressed, so they didn't attend. One of the only people who didn't attend, you know, living people who didn't attend their induction. So not everyone thinks the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is a wonderful thing, but I think it's a badge of honor that a lot of people have that they should not have. And I'm not looking at anyone in particular, but are you going to tell me that Madonna is rock and roll? Because Madonna's like a pop, the queen of pop, right? So she's about as rock and roll as a ham sandwich. And just in case you don't know, Rory Gallagher, what are his credentials to be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? Well, he came to prominence in around 1963. He had a band called Taste. They would tour and play music with the likes of Cream and Blind Faith. They had an album called On the Boards, which was absolutely fantastic. I think it was released in 1970. They had two live albums, Live Taste and Live at the Isle of Wight Festival. I think that's what it's called. Fantastic live albums. Rory was an unbelievable live guitar player. So my dad says. I only get to listen to his recordings. I never got to see him live, sadly. So then Rory started his solo career. Albums such as Rory Gallagher, Juice, Calling Card, Photo Finish. And one of my absolute, probably my favourite live album of all time, Irish Tour 74. If you haven't heard it, listen to it. Just go get it somewhere, wherever you stream your music. Irish Tour 74 from Rory Gallagher. It's unbelievably good. Such a great guitar player. But let's just move on. Rory Gallagher in 1975 was invited to play with the Rolling Stones because, of course, they were looking for a new lead guitarist. Rory said he went over just to see what was happening, and he jammed with them a bit, but he was happy with his solo career. Who turns down the Rolling Stones? Who? Tell me, who turns down the Rolling Stones? Nobody, that's who, except for Rory Gallagher. He was too good for them. It's probably true, actually. In fact, the only band that Rory ever considered joining outside of his taste and solo career was called Box of Frogs. It was kind of made up from of members of the Yardbirds who were kind of messing around, putting a band together. But he never really became an official member or anything like that. Now, some nominees in recent years. Let me just see if these match up with the musical caliber of Rory Gallagher in a rock and roll sense. All of these are wonderful artists in their own genres, but their own genres are not rock and roll. Mary J. Blige, Dave Matthews Band, Eminem, Kate Bush, Dolly Parton. All right, I'm sorry, Dave Matthews Band fans. He's rock and roll enough. Okay, fine, rock and roll, great. But there are huge bands who have been just ignored by the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Thin Lizzy have had one nomination but are not inducted. Motorhead have been nominated but not inducted. The Jam have not been inducted. Sonic Youth, The Stone Roses, Oasis, Blur, Alice in Chains, Soundgarden, Rage Against the Machine, although they'll probably get in this year, the Dead Kennedys, Iron Maiden, huge rock bands or well-respected rock bands, people who should at least be in contention for this sort of thing. Husker Du, the Stone Temple Pilots, the list goes on and on. Lists of bands and people that have just been ignored. So why does it matter? It just does, okay? Rory Gallagher has been influential for some of the biggest icons in rock and roll. The Edge says that Rory Gallagher was a huge influence. Slash from Guns N' Roses says Rory Gallagher was someone he listened to on a regular basis. Eric Clapton said that Rory Gallagher was the reason he got back into the blues. Brian May of Queen said that he went up to Rory Gallagher and said, "Excuse me, Mr. Gallagher, how do you get your sound?" Rory showed him how to dial in tones on an AC30, a Vox AC30, and Brian May credits Rory Gallagher for how he got his sound. And that's just a few people who reference Rory Gallagher, some of the biggest people who reference Rory Gallagher as a huge influence. Guitarists such as Gary Moore, Joe Bonamassa, Glenn Tipton, Alex Lifeson, James Dean Bradfield, they all recognize Rory Gallagher as being a huge influence on them. And if those people, huge rock stars in their own right, have Rory Gallagher as one of their biggest influences, then he should be recognized with a Hall of Fame induction. He should be praised as the great guitar player and blues player and rock and roller that he was. Rory, of course, lived a life full of playing live, hard drinking, hard rocking, and that's what he did. So unfortunately in 1995, at the age of 47, he passed away due to complications, including liver failure and so on. And Rory, sadly missed all the time. He should still be with us today, creating rock and roll the way we all love it. So I have created the petition, as I said, it's down below in the description. Please go and sign it. Please help us get Rory Gallagher a nomination for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2023. I believe nobody is more deserving than Rory Gallagher, and that, of course, is my personal opinion as a fan of Rory Gallagher. There are other hugely deserving bands and rockers, people like Motorhead and Thin Lizzy and, you know, many other bands, but Rory Gallagher for me should be in there. When I discovered he was not, it kind of shocked me. I just assumed he was already in there. But anyway, guys, please hit the link in the description below and sign the petition to get Rory Gallagher in there. Maybe we can raise some attention, maybe we can get some eyes on it, and who knows, it might just happen. And thank you so much for joining me and listening to me telling you that Rory Gallagher should be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Don't forget to check out the links in the description below. Don't forget 3 Chord Dave live on Saturday, and pick yourself up one of those 3 Chord Dave t-shirts. They're pretty cool. Anyway guys, thanks so much for joining me. I'll be back again with a guitar related video very soon, and until then, take care.